Hello guys, thank you for joining me back on my channel, and today we're going to be talking vintage. What pieces that I buy vintage and where I buy them from. Vintage is a massive passion for me. I know I've been saying to you guys that I would do this for a while, and a lot of you guys said you really wanted it, which is why I want to do it. This might not do the best of all my videos, but obviously I'm doing this because it's something I'm really passionate about, and I know it's going to help you guys that commented on my video saying you really wanted it. And I know vintage is daunting. If you don't know what pieces that you kind of want to look for, you don't know what's going to work, then it's really hard to go out and buy vintage. It's the most sustainable way to shop clothing items, so it's something that's super important. It's affordable. Honestly, some of the pieces I've got for a few pounds and that makes me so excited. And also the stuff you get is going to be so unique, no one else is going to have it. Just a quick reminder of me, I am a UK size 12 to 14. I'm 5'6". I'm going to show you these pieces on me so you can see exactly what they look like, and you can obviously understand how that would be on your body type as well. I had a child, she's not a baby anymore, a toddler, 20 months ago, and I definitely buy pieces that I kind of dress around my stomach, I guess. I don't necessarily like to highlight it because I definitely have a mum tum, but then sometimes I just want to wear what I want to wear. So obviously I'll talk you guys through that process. I am going to link below any kind of new-ish pieces that are going to be similar to what I'm showing you in case you guys can't find them vintage, but obviously I encourage you to find them vintage yourself, because you're definitely going to get something really extra special with those pieces rather than always just going for kind of new pieces. Now the first piece I have to talk about is vintage shirts. Now this is actually, I'm wearing one at the minute, obviously had to wear one to show you guys. This is a man's shirt, and actually the next shirt I'm going to show you is also a man's shirt. I much prefer the fit of a vintage man's shirt than I do a woman's shirt. I like the oversized fit. I just think it's a lot better for my kind of style. You guys know that I really love an oversized style. I love styling an oversized shirt, and that's why the men's one fit works so well for me. Now you can literally pick up men's vintage shirts for barely anything, and they're everywhere. They're one of the easiest pieces to source if you want to bring vintage into your wardrobe. Now what I love about this shirt and what makes it extra special, I have shown you guys this shirt before. This was actually from Pine and Treasure. It is a vintage shirt, but it's been embroidered with Bee's name and then her date of birth here, which just makes this such a special piece, and it's literally going to be in my wardrobe forever, especially because of the embroidery on it. I know that that's her, and I just love it. Now with vintage men's shirts, I will always go for one of the biggest sizes I can find. This is a large, so this is on the smaller side, so I would tend to fully tuck this shirt, because if I left it oversized, kind of untucked, it wouldn't look quite right on me, but it looks amazing tucked into things. Now if I was to go look for a vintage shirt myself, I would definitely go for an XXL or an XL. Obviously, because I'm mid-size, things that might be oversized on someone who's smaller, they could probably go for a men's large and it would be oversized, whereas that's actually not going to be oversized enough on me. So I'll always tend to go for an XL, XXL, or even if there's bigger, if you want something really kind of big. I wanted to show you this shirt because this is potentially my most favourite shirt, vintage shirt that I have. It's actually a vintage Dior, men's Dior shirt. I think I got this for £25. It has little Dior on the pocket here, which I just am obsessed with, and I think it's just such a beautiful shirt. The quality is obviously stunning, it washes really well, and it's just going to be in my wardrobe forever. Now obviously I'll show you guys how I would style this, but a lot of the times I wear my oversized vintage shirts with kind of shorts, or I wear them with jeans, maybe a slimmer fitting jean, or if I'm wearing them with a wide leg jean or a wide leg trouser, I'll tend to tuck or French tuck, just to give my body a little bit more definition, because I am curvy. It kind of does need that. Or I'll wear it fully oversized, untucked, because you guys know that I love that look as well. Now the next pieces that I will always look for vintage. Actually I would always look for these vintage before I go for new types of items like this, because I just think you're going to get something so much more cooler and unique and cheaper. And that's oversized vintage t-shirts. Now this is like a American, I actually don't even know what this university is, probably should look, an American kind of vintage WSU Alumni Association t-shirt. I just thought it was super cool, super different. I love graphic t-shirts that kind of have something on the back. So when I saw this, I was like, yeah, I absolutely love it. Also, to get a white vintage t-shirt that's in really good condition, if you see one, just get it, because often the white ones are where they're a little bit more stained. Just to let you guys know, on vintage, I see vintage as kind of very early 2000s backwards, so I wouldn't really class anything that's newer than that as vintage. Obviously people class it differently, and years ago I used to say 90s backwards, but now the 2000s trend is really on trend, so it's something that I kind of look for in the very early 2000s anyway. It's also worth mentioning that my style of vintage, or the vintage that I love to buy, is very trend led. So if I know there's kind of a certain trend at the minute, I will go and look for a piece that's vintage in that kind of trend first. So for example, I don't know, a red pair of trousers are in fashion, red wide leg trousers, I'll go and look for that in the places that I look for vintage, which I'll get to further on in the video, before I kind of look for it on the high street or anywhere else, just because I know I'm probably going to get something that's kind of better quality, more unique, and going to stand the test of time in my wardrobe better, and it's also going to cost me less. So that's what I'll tend to do. So the next t-shirt is more of a kind of baby tee fitted t-shirt, but it's a graphic one. Again, this says rock and blues, and it looks like it's from California. Great, I love it. And this is just a really cute t-shirt to just throw on with so many pieces, because this is more fitted. I would wear it with definitely a more of a voluminous piece on the bottom. So that might be a wide leg pair of jeans, wide leg pair of trousers, or even these baby tees that are graphic baby tees look amazing with kind of a full maxi skirt. So I'd wear that. If it was really hot, I would wear a pair of kind of more flowy boxer style shorts. You guys know that I love those shape of shorts. They're really flattering if you're curvier. But yeah, I think this is, and this again, I think I paid a little bit more for this because I bought it from kind of a vintage market, which we'll get to, but I think I paid £15 for this, so it's really so cheap. So the next pieces I want to talk about are vintage dresses. I actually do not buy vintage dresses in the autumn winter. I only buy them in the spring and the summer, because I'm not a big dress wearer when it's not in the kind of warmer seasons anyway. But I also find that vintage style of dress, I'm not going to find what I want for the colder seasons. I'm only going to find it in the more summery seasons when the weather's nicer, because I love a vintage maxi dress, and that's absolutely what I would look for. In the past, I have found amazing rework dresses that might have been midi and they've been made shorter. But actually for me, a true vintage dress has got to be a summer maxi dress, spring summer maxi dress. And this is probably my most favourite vintage dress that I have. I am pretty sure this is probably like a night dress, but honestly, this type of dress is a vintage slip dress is probably my most searched for vintage dress piece of all the time. Whenever I go anywhere that's got vintage, I'm always looking for vintage slip dresses, because they are just such a beautiful piece to have in your wardrobe. This is, I just absolutely love everything about it. I actually have a Skims bra that's the same colour of this. It works really well with it, because one, it's see-through here, so you've got to wear a bra, or you might not want to, but I choose to wear a bra with it. Also, I have to wear a bra. I breastfed my little girl for 13 months, I can't not. It's a beautiful maxi length, and for curvy girls, I've said this before, but slip dresses just skim your curves beautifully, and that's why I wear them so much, and why it really is one of my dresses of choice, because they're just such a beautiful option if you're curvy. So the next piece is this beautiful flowy white maxi dress. Again, this really does look like nightwear to me, so don't be afraid of picking something that may have had a use for something else in the past. If you can style it and make it work how you want it to work, absolutely go for it. And I think the lady I got this from said it was, oh yeah, it says made in Germany, so clearly it is German. And I think it's late 80s, and it is so beautiful. And again, I feel quite lucky that I've managed to get this piece. It has no marks on it, no stains on it. It's literally perfect, and have a piece that's kind of this age and that is in this good condition. I think that's pretty good. Now this fits quite smocky on me. and it kind of hangs kind of off my bust. I have quite a big bust, so it's not that flattering for me to not wear a belt. So I will wear a belt with this. Nip in the waist, and it's just such a beautiful dress. Obviously there's dresses similar to this on the high street. I just think when you know you've got something vintage on and someone says to you, where's your dress from? And you're like, I'm so sorry, it's vintage. To me, that's the best feeling, because I know that this is so unique for me, and it's also such a beautiful piece that people just aren't going to find easy. And again, I think I paid like £10 for this. Now, when you're looking for sizing with vintage, when it's specifically pieces like dresses or the piece I'm about to show you, definitely look, if you're buying online, look to see what size they've marked it at. The sellers there are usually quite good at marking up sizes, or obviously if there's measurements or you want to ask the measurements. Also, there's a fly in here, so apologies, but I might have to do something about that because that's going to 15 minutes later, I got the fly out. So there we are, we're done now. Hopefully no more flies come back in. Anyway, so yeah, on vintage sizing, I would kind of ask for measurements if you can. Obviously there's trial and error with vintage like there is with anything, and sometimes you might not get it right. Also, I know I've probably bought them for very little money, that worries me even less. Even if I can give it to friends, or like, you know, your sister, your mom, if it's not going to be quite right for you. The next piece I think is so good in vintage, and better in vintage than in new pieces, is dungarees. Vintage dungarees are one of my favourite pieces to source again. I actually only have one pair at the minute. I did have some previously. Sorry if you can hear someone pumping their bike tyre up outside the room. This is not going well today. Flies, bike tyres. Anyway, they are one of my favourite pieces to source on vintage, because I just think they look so much better. The fit is so much better. I'm not sure whether this is a man's vintage dungarees or whether it's a women's. Doesn't really matter to me. It was sized at a 12-14 where I bought it from, and it really is actually the perfect fit. Now, obviously I'll show you guys what they look like on. I'll definitely look for kind of a straight leg or a wide leg in, or even like a tapered leg in vintage dungarees, but to be honest, you're not really going to get a slimmer leg or a skinny leg or anything like that if it's true vintage. And yeah, these have like a wider waist on them, so they're quite big around the waist. I guess it's probably because they are men's, so I would opt for a more fitted t-shirt when I'm wearing these because of that. Because I'm curvy, I want to obviously not drown myself too much with clothes that kind of aren't nipped in at the waist, so that's why I would tend to wear something a little bit more fitted, but always amazing piece to source when you're looking for vintage. So the next items I wanted to talk about are vintage top. I like to find trend-led fashion, vintage fashion. This is something that obviously I think you guys would have seen everywhere at the minute, and that's knitted waistcoats. Obviously we're in summer at the minute. Waistcoats are everywhere, anywhere and anyway, and I just think a really nice knitted waistcoat is so lovely for spring and summer. I have this one, which is a more of a longer line one, which has these really cool buttons. I think this is very 80s. It seems very 80s to me, and it's such a beautiful waistcoat. I'll show you obviously what it's like on. And then I have this one here, which is kind of a button up, more of a semi-fitted style, where this one's a little bit, the previous one's a little bit more oversized. And again, I just adore these knitted vintage waistcoats. They're quite easy to source, actually. They're quite easy to find, which is why obviously they're such a good piece to buy vintage. Again, both of these I'm pretty sure I paid less than £10. In fact, I know I did. I think they were about £8 each, which I just think is so lovely when you're looking for some new pieces in your wardrobe. You want them to be super sustainable, unique, and you don't want to spend that much money. Like, you can't really lose. So the next pieces I wanted to talk about are more high-end and designer pieces that you can find vintage. Now, this is one of my biggest tips if you want to get more designer pieces in your wardrobe, more pieces that you are going to have forever. And genuinely, my vintage pieces are the pieces that I sell a lot of my pieces on if I kind of get to a point where I'm like, I don't really want these anymore, I'm not getting the wear of out of them, my wardrobe's got too chaotic, let's sell them on. So I use Vinted to do that. I'll link that for you guys below so you can see it. But I sell a lot of my pieces on, but I very rarely sell a vintage designer piece. Very rarely. And these pieces I'm going to show you, I'm just going to show you two today. I have a lot more than that. I'm going to show you two today. I've had it for years, especially this first piece. which is a Gucci fitted top, and this was when Tom Ford was at Gucci, and honestly it has the little Gucci logo on, and it's just a jersey pink fitted top. I adore this. I cannot imagine myself ever not loving this. I wore this when I was like quite pregnant because it's stretchy. Afterwards, I can be multiple of sizes to wear this. It's not a piece that I'm ever gonna not see use in my wardrobe and not absolutely adore every time I wear it. And every time I wear it, people are like, wow, that's amazing. Like I say, I probably bought this 8 years ago, so I think I paid very little for it, maybe £100, which seems a lot for a top like this. But for this type of beautifully made top, I just know it's going to be in my wardrobe forever. I look after this as well, and I think that's the thing with the pieces like this, you've got to look after them because they're special, and I think because you know that, you do look after them more. I have this in a medium. I really don't know what that means, but obviously it's a stretchy jersey top. This looks so amazing with something full and oversized on the bottom because it is fitted. Again, my curvy girls, I will always tend to do that. It balances proportions. So, you know, a flowy maxi skirt or a tailored pair of pleated oversized trousers just looks so good with this top. And the next top I want to show you is this Dior top. This was the Carrie Bradshaw top. Not this one specifically, but like the one that she wore in Sex and the City all those years ago. And honestly, I'm obsessed with this. It has kind of a sewn-on leather, I guess. I have no idea actually what that material is. J'adore Dior, and I just think this is a cutest t-shirt if you just want something a bit more special. Now this is interesting actually, you know, because this, so if you look for these t-shirts online in the places that I will tell you about later on in this video, everybody said these fit really small, and that is one thing about vintage. Vintage does fit small. So I know that if something's from my 50s or the 60s, it's a size 12, it's probably more like a 6 or an 8 these days. We are genuinely bigger with our sizing, so this is actually a 12, and it definitely is on the tighter side for me. I wouldn't want it to be any tighter without kind of ruining it or stretching it. So these t-shirts, if you see them around, it's better to size up in them, because they are not always very big fitting. Again, I would style this very similar to the Gucci top with something more full and oversized on the bottom, and I just think this is going to work so well. And again, I'm going to pass this down to B one day because I just adore it. So the last pieces I want to talk about are vintage maxi skirts. This is like a obsession for me at the minute. I love looking for vintage maxi skirts, and I think there's some beautiful ones around for not very much money. I'm going to show you two of my favourite, but I definitely have more of those. And this is this kind of wrap around. You're not going to be able to see this very well with me holding it up at all, but obviously I'll try it on so you guys can see it. It's a wrap around maxi skirt. This is actually an old monsoon skirt, and when we talk about vintage sizing, this is a 14, and I had to get my mum to move the button. I did get this not that long after having B, maybe a couple of months after having B, and I most definitely had to get my mum to move the button. Good thing about this is it's a vintage skirt, so you can move, it's a wraparound skirt, so you can move the button very easily and it's still going to fit you. But again, I would say this is probably more of a small 12, maybe a 10, and that's really what we have with vintage sizing. It's always going to be smaller, but it's such a beautiful skirt. It looks so amazing with so many things, and I just adore the fact that I know this is vintage and I'm not going to be able to get anything exactly the same on the high street. I actually love styling this kind of fuller maxi skirt with kind of a crop t-shirt, or even like a fitted baby t-shirt. I think looks so nice in the summer, and I definitely would opt for something a little bit more fitted on the top to go with the skirt, because I think it just looks beautiful when you're curvy. Next skirt I want to show you is this stunning purple maxi skirt, and this is one actually from Ghost, and this is in a size small, which really goes against anything we've just been talking about in vintage sizing. But that is why a lot of the time if you're buying online, you may not get the right size until you've tried it on. I actually bought this in a physical shop so I could try it on while I was there, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. This has very much got that maxi slip skirt fit that's kind of everywhere at the minute. But this colour, this fit, this material, it's everything. And I just get so excited about vintage because I just know that no one else is going to have this. And this is a vintage Ghost skirt. Now Ghost did a lot of this type of shape in the kind of 90s, kind of 80s, 90s. So it's definitely worth searching online for a vintage Ghost skirt, because I think you would find some absolutely beautiful ones. And now I'm egging myself on to do that. I now need to go and do this to see what I can find. I'd love like a printed version actually, not floral because I don't really do floral, but some kind of like cool printed version I think would be beautiful. This again looks so nice with kind of a crop top, or you could wear something oversized. So this would actually look beautiful in the day with an oversized t-shirt, a pair of sandals kind of French tucked at the front, and this is just going to be such a beautiful look. And these skirts are so versatile as well, because they're going to look amazing in the day, amazing at night. This is also, I thought this was silk actually, and it's not, and a good job it's not actually, because I put this in the wash. But this actually, this is like a viscose rayon skirt, and it washes beautifully, which again sometimes you have to be really careful with vintage items. You can kind of wreck them once you put them in the washing machine, but this actually does wash and iron really, really beautifully. And honestly, I think vintage maxi skirts are one of my most favourite things to purchase. So the next pieces I wanted to show you are accessory pieces. Now I could probably do a whole video on vintage accessories in itself, because there's so many pieces that I could talk about, but I wanted to give you a general gist of just showing kind of one of each of what I would look for in terms of vintage pieces. Now, some of the best belts that I have in my wardrobe are vintage, and this one I bought really recently. It kind of had the studs around here, which has very kind of like cape vibes, and this like really amazing buckle at the front. I actually love how wide this belt is. I've seen more wider belts on the high street and designers at the minute, and I just think they're so beautiful. Also for curvy girls, I've said this before, like belting items is your best friend if you want to show off a waist, and this kind of wider belt does that so beautifully and is so flattering. And honestly, I just absolutely adore this. I think when you find a vintage piece like this, it is just so exciting because you know you're just in love instantly. And again, I think I paid like £15 for this, and it is real leather, and it's just beautiful. So definitely look for leather belts, vintage leather belts. Again, sizing is difficult, but ask the seller if they don't have a specific size on there. Ask the seller, what size do you think this would fit? And often they know. They've probably tried it on their own body, especially with accessories. It's really easy to do that. But I just think it's such a beautiful belt. So the next piece is vintage caps, and this is probably one of my favorites. I actually cannot tell you where I bought this from. I don't know, I think I got it online, but I'm questioning myself, is that to where I actually got it from. I've never actually seen one quite as good as this. I love the colour, I love the yellow, the fit of it is perfect. It has that perfect kind of dad cap shape, that kind of 5 panel, which I'm always going to look for in a cap because I just love that. It works so well with my kind of outfits and my kind of vibe, and I just think it is a really nice cap. And again, I think this was about £8 if I can remember where I bought it from, which I think was online. We'll get to the places I buy things from anyway, but a vintage cap is always a really cool thing to look out for. So the next item I genuinely could talk about all day. I have a lot of these types of items, and it's actually one of the first places I started to buy designer vintage, and that is of course in bag form. I do have a lot of vintage designer bags because again, they're so much more affordable, you get so much more for your money, and you really get some cool pieces that are just so unique. Now this is actually a Gucci Boston bag. This was from a website that sells pre-loved and vintage called CSD. I will link them for you guys. I actually did a campaign with them, so this is actually part of a previous paid for campaign, but it's such a beautiful bag. It's in beautiful condition. It comes with the dust bag, and it also comes with the original strap, so you can wear it as a crossbody. I don't really like it as a crossbody because I don't like the strap length. I like a shorter strap length, and this is quite long, but it has its uses if you want to wear it like that, but I tend to just hold it. And I actually don't even know how much a New Boston bag is. it's a lot of money. It's definitely, I think, about 3,000. This was 700. So it really shows that you can get something of beautiful quality that's absolutely amazing, that's really trend led as well, but you can pay a fraction of the price of it if you buy it pre-loved, if you buy it from vintage shops. Obviously authentication is a difficult one, so we'll get onto that when I'm talking about kind of buying the design and the vintage next. So where I source my vintage from is probably one of the most important parts of this video, and there's kind of 5 places that I will go to source my vintage, and a lot of it depends on what I'm trying to source, but also of course it depends on look. Now, one of the easiest places and probably the best value places to search for vintage is Vinted. I use that probably the most when I'm looking for something for me, something specific that I want. I will kind of search on Vinted for, you know, ghost, vintage, maxi skirt, and see what arrives. Now, obviously shopping online, once you start to get an eye for vintage, you'll realise when things are vintage and when they're not, because a lot of the time people either think they're vintage or they mark them as vintage and they're just not, which can be really frustrating sometimes. I've been kind of not tricked, because I don't think people know they're doing it, but I've been kind of mistakenly buying very occasionally mistakenly buying pieces that I thought were, you know, vintage, and ended up being like Primark, which is so disappointing. But it's obviously a process that you go through when you're looking for vintage. Now, vintage is honestly so good because you've got everyday people selling their vintage pieces that they maybe bought for themselves and they just don't fit anymore or don't work for them. And this is a place that I definitely use mostly, I think, to buy my vintage pieces. And it's just so easy. You can sit on your phone, you can look for the pieces that you want. Say, for example, you know that kind of white maxi dresses are missing from your wardrobe and you want something a little bit different, they're really on trend, go into Vinted and just search for that. You can filter on your sizing as well, but definitely try to look at things on the more bigger side and even on the smaller side sometimes, because, you know, for example, those stretchy knitted waistcoats, a 10 would probably fit in that if you're a 12 or a 14. So definitely don't kind of cancel those sizes out before you've kind of looked at the piece, because I think it really depends on what it is, whether or not it's kind of gonna fit you like you want it or not. So the next place I love to shop for vintage, and this is probably going to be the most kind of daunting for people who are just kind of starting out buying vintage, don't really know what to buy, and that's charity shops. Me being the person that I am, I'm a bargain hunter. I'm like, take me to the messiest charity shop in the back end of nowhere and I'll be the most excited, because I feel like that's the place you're going to find some amazing things. And I definitely have found some amazing things in charity shops in all sorts of places. I also, whenever I'm in a new town or a new, you know, village that's got charity shops, I will seek out those charity shops and I will go to them, because who knows what you're going to find there. And obviously when you're in charity shops, you're going to be buying pieces that are £1, £2 for it. And that's what's so good about it. One of the best places, this is such a big secret for me as well, I'm telling you all my secrets. One of the best places I like to shop for vintage is the Salvation Army charity shops, because they're massive and the prices for pieces in there are really good. There's also so much vintage in there. I don't know how, there just is. And there's some beautiful pieces. And again, these items that I've shown you are absolutely the type of items that I'm going to look for. I'm going to look across range of sizes from 10 to 18 to 20 to 22. Oversized blazers is something we've not got into because we're not obviously in the season for wearing them. I'll probably do this in video again when it gets more to like the colder seasons. They're absolutely the pieces you're going to find for literally a couple of pounds. And also make sure you're looking in the men's section, because you're going to get oversized shirts, oversized blazers, so many cool things. Even tailored trousers from the men's section are so good vintage, and you're just going to pay a couple of pounds for them. Make sure you're checking the washing labels. You want to make sure these are washed when you take them home, but check them and make sure these items can be washed easily. And yeah, you're just going to find some amazing pieces. So the next place I like to look for vintage, and again, this is all about look what you're going to find if you're going to go somewhere that's going to have these places, but it's physical places where, so boutiques, antique centres where you can find vintage. Obviously you can go to cities and you're going to be able to find vintage shops everywhere, you just need to Google search them. But again, in a lot of towns and smaller places, a lot of the time you'll be able to find someone who has a vintage shop, or actually antique shops which will have sellers that sell vintage. This is actually what I do. So in Matlock Antiques Centre, which is in Derbyshire in the UK, I actually have a little unit, a little place in there. I'll actually put some photos on the screen so you can see it, where I sell vintage. And that's kind of a passion project for me. I love being able to go out and buy vintage pieces that aren't necessarily my size and be able to put them in my shop and sell them to people who I hope and I know would love them. So definitely check out antique centres and antique shops, and also physical boutiques. Again, you can try on, you can physically see the pieces, you can see if there's any damage, you can see what the condition's like, you can see if there's any marks, and actually physically being able to see and touch those pieces, really there is nothing better when it comes to vintage. And always try on if you can, like, don't be ashamed to like go in like a corner and try on. Like, I do this all the time because I want to make sure that pieces that I'm getting are going to fit me and going to work for me. So the next place I want to talk about is actually online vintage shops. So you'll be on Retro. Actually, Oxfam have a decent website selling vintage, obviously secondhand pieces, on their website, which is also another really good place to check. I'll put lots of other links in below so you guys can see the places where I would shop, but they definitely have some amazing pieces. Also really good if you're looking for something very specific, to check out those websites. The beyond Retro, but also other, I can't remember exactly the shops at the minute, but I'll link them below. They have some like amazing oversized sweatshirts. Again, not something I've gone into here because we're in the wrong season, but an oversized sweatshirt, like an American kind of style sweatshirt, is something that I definitely wear loads of, and those stores will kind of stock a lot of those items. Oversized denim jackets, you can find them there, and so definitely somewhere that I would check for those vintage pieces. Also, what's great about those is because they're a proper store, you can obviously try on. If it's not right, you can send it back, which is always a good thing. So the next thing I want to talk about is where to buy your designer and your high-end pieces. Now this is where you have to be a little bit more careful, and this is where I tend to only buy these pieces where there are places with authentication. So my main places to go for these pieces would be Vestiaire, but also there's a brand that I was talking about earlier that I actually worked with late last year, who are called CSD, and they have an authentication facility their side. And there's also websites like the Hoster, which again authenticate all of their pieces. I'll put all these links below so you guys can see them. Also, eBay have authentication now on pieces, and so do Vinted. I haven't bought anything designer through Vinted yet, but I have sold designer items through Vinted that have then been authenticated for the people who are buying it off me. So actually having that service, I think, is really important. There's so many good fakes out there, and yeah, you might be paying a lot less than you would if you're buying these pieces new, but you're still paying a lot of money, and you want something that you know is going to be real. You want that peace of mind, and you know, I think sometimes you've just got to go through the authentication route. That's the only way that really makes me feel comfortable when I am buying those types of pieces. But yeah, having that authentication process really just gives you extra peace of mind, which I think you want when you're spending that little bit more money on something that's a designer piece. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful for you guys. I loved talking about vintage. I could literally do it all day, every day. It's my most favourite thing ever. Next week I want to do a video on my favourite shorts for summer. As a mid-sized girl, I know how hard it is to find shorts that feel nice, fit nice, so I want to do that with you guys. It's a really hard item to find when you're mid-sized, when you're curvier. So yeah, that's a video I'm excited to do. And again, like and subscribe to my videos, please. You guys being here and watching me most weeks, every week, makes me so happy. So I will see you next Sunday.